The scream came from the carriage yard, just as Helena Fenwick was being politely excluded from the conversation. Lady Ashcombe had turned her shoulder by no more than an inch, which in a drawing-room at Merewick Park was sufficient to close a door. Helena understood such doors. She had been understanding them for nearly 3 years. No, truly, Lady Ashcombe was saying to Lady Joan Harrowden. One hears so many things that cannot possibly be true. The sentence was gracious. The glance toward Helena was not. Helena kept both hands around the faded blue songbook resting in her lap. The silk covering had once been bright enough to rival a summer sky. Time and use had softened it to the color of washed cornflowers. Lady Joan's mouth tightened. Before she could answer, another cry cut through the room. This one was a child's. Every head turned. A footman appeared in the doorway, white around the lips. "Your ladyship." Lord Alderley's chaise overturned in the lower yard. Lady Joan rose so quickly her chair struck the carpet behind her. Helena was already standing. The drawing-room dissolved into movement. By the time Helena reached the upper corridor, Theodore Harrowden had been carried into his nursery. The Duke of Merewick walked beside the men bearing him, one hand braced beneath his son's uninjured shoulder, as if he could steady the entire world by force of will. Adrian Harrowden was a tall man, made more imposing by restraint. He did not shout. He did not curse. He issued quiet instructions, and people obeyed them before he had finished speaking. "Send for Cole." "He has already been sent for, Your Grace." "And Mr. Wilmot from Lewes." "Yes, Your Grace." "The pony?" "Alive, sir." "Frightened." "The groom?" "Bruised only." Then the boy cried again. Not loudly this time. That made it worse. Helena stopped beyond the nursery threshold. She had seen terror become quiet before. Lady Joan came up beside her, breathing hard. "Theo is 9, she whispered unnecessarily. "He has never feared a horse in his life. He may not fear the horse." Lady Joan glanced at her. Helena did not explain. Inside, servants moved with anxious haste. A basin appeared, towels, bandages. Someone drew curtains that did not need drawing. Someone else opened them again. Theo lay against the pillows, his dark hair damp against his forehead. A shallow cut marked his temple. His right arm had been placed carefully against his body. But every attempt to examine him brought a new wave of panic. Dr. Matthias Cole arrived first, red-faced from haste, his coat not quite settled across his shoulders. Mr. Stephen Wilmot followed not long after, carrying the compact leather case of a country surgeon. Neither man was careless. That was not the problem. "Lord Alderley," Dr. Cole said, keeping his voice calm, "I must know where it pains you." Theo shook his head. Wilmot reached gently toward the injured shoulder. The boy recoiled. "No, only for a moment." "No." His father stepped closer. "Theo." The child looked at him. For 1 second Helena saw hope. Then 3 adults spoke at once. "You must lie still." "Your Grace, if you would hold his wrist." "Come, my lord, this will be quicker if—" Theo began struggling against the pillows. His breath shortened. He was no longer answering questions. Dr. Cole frowned. "He is working himself into a state." Helena's fingers tightened around her songbook. Not a state, she thought. A corner. Theo's eyes moved rapidly from face to face. Every adult was taller. Every hand reached before asking. Every command made the room smaller. Lady Joan whispered, "Helena?" Helena did not move. Not yet. She watched Adrian. His face had gone pale beneath the severe composure. He was trying to help his son and frightening him more with each attempt. Helena knew the particular cruelty of people doing harm while believing themselves necessary. She stepped to the doorway. "Your Grace." Adrian turned. Recognition came first. Then surprise. He knew what society knew of Mrs. Helena Fenwick. A widow received by his aunt, despite an old financial disgrace no one mentioned plainly in decent rooms. Behind Helena, Lady Ashcombe had reached the corridor with 2 other guests. Her voice dropped. "Surely not her." Adrian heard. His gaze hardened, but Helena spoke before he could. "May I try?" The room stilled by degrees. Dr. Cole glanced from Helena to the Duke. "Madam, the boy has had a severe fright and an injury. I know. This is not a matter for, Doctor." Helena's voice remained quiet. "I do not mean to treat his shoulder." She looked at Theo. "I mean to stop everyone from frightening him long enough for you to do it." Silence. Wilmot studied the boy, then Helena. Adrian did not ask whether she understood the social risk of entering his son's nursery. He looked instead at Theo, whose breath came too quickly between clenched teeth. Then he looked back at Helena. "Try. Not an order. Permission." Helena entered. She did not approach the bed. Instead, she took a chair several feet away and sat. Theo watched her suspiciously. No one spoke. Helena opened the blue songbook. A small torn slip of paper shifted from the pocket sewn inside its rear cover. She caught it with her thumb before it could fall and tucked it securely back into place. Then she began to sing. The melody was old and simple. Her mother had sung it without accompaniment when winter storms struck the windows of a much smaller house. Helena did not sing loudly. She did not sing beautifully enough to demand attention. She sang as though there were nothing in the room that required Theo to answer. His breathing remained ragged through the first line. On the second, it slowed. Someone near the door moved. Adrian lifted one hand. The servant stopped. Helena continued. Theo's fist loosened against the coverlet. Dr. Cole took one silent step nearer. The boy stiffened. Helena paused in the song. "Not yet," she said. Cole looked at his son. Adrian looked at the physician. "Not yet." Helena began again. By the fourth verse, Theo's eyes had closed. Not asleep. Listening. His father moved closer, but Helena raised her gaze to Adrian and shook her head once. He stopped instantly. That, more than rank or wealth, made her look at him differently. He could be corrected. Minutes passed. At last, Theo whispered, "Papa." Adrian's composure cracked at the edges. "I am here. Too many." Adrian glanced around the room. Then something in his face changed, understanding. "You heard him," he said. The transformation was immediate. All unnecessary attendants out. Lady Joan may remain. Dr. Cole, Mr. Wilmot, no one else. Lady Ashcombe drew herself upright in the corridor. Adrian turned his head, and Mrs. Fenwick remains. The door closed upon the guests. Theo's eyes opened again. Helena lowered the songbook. "Would you like me nearer?" A tiny nod. Only then did she move her chair beside the bed. Wilmot examined the injured shoulder, while Helena spoke softly between his questions. Theo winced, but did not fight. Dr. Cole cleaned the cut at his temple. The injuries, though painful, proved less terrible than the boy's panic had suggested. Bruised ribs, a badly strained shoulder, a cut requiring care but not alarm. When it was done, Theo's eyelids drooped. His fingers caught lightly in Helena's sleeve. She let them remain. Adrian stood on the opposite side of the bed. Relief had not softened him. It had made him look older. He reached for the blue songbook when it began sliding from Helena's knee. "So, this is the physician we required after all." His tone was dry enough that she looked up. "Do not let Dr. Cole hear you say so." A flicker of something almost like amusement crossed his face. He handed the book back. Their fingers touched, only for an instant. Warm skin against warm skin. Helena withdrew first. So did he. Neither apologized. Theo's breathing deepened. Adrian looked down at his son, then at the quiet room he had finally allowed to become quiet. When he spoke, his voice was low. "Mrs. Fenwick." Helena met his eyes. "What did you see that the rest of us missed?" "The rest of us were trying to make him obey," Helena said. "You were all asking him to prove he was brave before anyone had allowed him to be frightened." Adrian Harrowden stood very still. Across the bed, Theo slept with one hand curled loosely against the coverlet. Dr. Cole had finished binding the strained shoulder and had withdrawn to speak with Mr. Wilmot near the hearth. Lady Joan sat by the window, watching her grandnephew with the exhausted attention of someone unwilling to trust peace, merely because it had arrived. Adrian looked at Helena again. "And you knew that because—" Helena lowered her gaze to the blue songbook in her lap. Because fear changes when people stop arguing with it. It was more answer than she had intended to give. The Duke seemed to understand that. He did not press. Instead, he glanced toward the physicians. Will he sleep? Dr. Cole approached. He should, Your Grace. The shoulder is badly strained, but I find no sign of fracture. His ribs will trouble him. The cut is shallow. Quiet will serve him better than excitement. Wilmot nodded. No riding for some time. Adrian's mouth tightened. That will injure his dignity more severely than the fall. A soft sound escaped Helena before she could stop it. He looked at her. She realized she had laughed. It was barely more than a breath, but the Duke's expression changed as if she had done something unexpectedly bold. Theo stirred. All amusement vanished from the room. Helena leaned slightly toward him. You are safe. His eyes opened only halfway. Will they touch my shoulder again? Not unless they tell you first. Dr. Cole looked faintly surprised. Adrian did not. No one touches you without warning, he said. Theo studied his father as though measuring whether the promise could be trusted. Then his eyes closed. The moment lodged somewhere in Helena's chest. Not because Adrian had repeated her language, because he had changed his behavior. Lady Joan rose. Helena, you have been in that chair for nearly 2 hours. I am quite well. That is what women say shortly before falling over. Helena stood to prove her wrong. The room tilted, only slightly, but Adrian noticed. He stepped forward, then stopped before touching her. His hand came out between them, palm angled upward. Mrs. Fenwick. Helena looked at it. It was an ordinary gesture, a gentleman offering assistance to a lady who had risen too quickly. Yet nothing about the last 2 hours had felt ordinary. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed carefully around hers. No urgency, no ownership, only steadiness. The dizziness passed almost at once. I am recovered, she said. He released her immediately. Good. Her hand felt strangely aware of the absence. She tucked it around the songbook. Dr. Cole glanced toward Theo. I should return after luncheon. You will, Adrian said. And Mr. Wilmot as well, if he thinks it necessary. Wilmot inclined his head. I would prefer to examine the shoulder once more tomorrow. Then tomorrow. Helena turned toward the door. Adrian spoke behind her. Mrs. Fenwick. She paused. I did not thank you. You need not. His brow shifted. I beg your pardon. She faced him fully. If you thank me as though I performed some extraordinary service, Theo may hear of it. Then he will think his fear was extraordinary too. Adrian said nothing. Helena continued, more gently. He was frightened, that is all. I would rather no one make a legend of it. For a moment the Duke simply watched her. Then he inclined his head. Very well, it should have ended there. Instead he added, May I at least be grateful. She almost smiled again. That is your private affair, Your Grace. This time the amusement reached his eyes. Later that afternoon, the conservatory was almost empty. Lady Joan had insisted Helena walk before returning upstairs, though Helena suspected the older woman had engineered the invitation with more intention than she admitted. Adrian joined them near the orange trees. He did not ask about Theo first. Have you always sung? Helena glanced at him. My mother did. I learned because she objected to being the only person in the family capable of carrying a tune. And were you obedient? Rarely in useful matters. Lady Joan gave a suspicious cough that sounded very much like suppressed laughter. Adrian looked at Helena with open curiosity now, and she found that more unsettling than his earlier scrutiny. Most people who knew the name Fenwick asked about the scandal without asking. They studied her manners for evidence. They watched how she handled money, invitations, jewelry, servants. They never asked whether she sang. My aunt tells me you have been staying with her since August, Adrian said. Yes, and before that. Helena's expression cooled by instinct. Lady Joan intervened. Adrian? No. Helena stopped her. It is a reasonable question. She met the Duke's gaze. I stayed with a cousin in Bath for several months. Before that, I rented rooms near Chichester. You prefer Sussex. I prefer places where people do not pretend curiosity is charity. Adrian absorbed that without offense. Then I shall attempt honesty. That would be unusual. Painfully so, I am told. Their eyes met. There was that almost laughter again, but something quieter beneath it. Helena looked away first. A footman approached the conservatory entrance, carrying a silver tray. Your Grace, a letter from Lady Ashcombe's sister in London. Her ladyship asked that it be brought directly. Adrian took the folded sheet. He might have handed it back unopened. Instead, his expression changed as he read the few lines visible beneath the seal. Lady Joan noticed. What is it? Adrian folded the letter once. Gossip. Helena's fingers tightened around the edge of her book. Lady Joan's face hardened. About Helena? Adrian did not answer quickly enough. That was answer enough. Helena lifted her chin. You need not protect me from the existence of my own reputation. I was considering protecting my household from people who mistake repetition for truth. The words struck harder than they should have. She studied him. He turned to the footman. Mrs. Fenwick is Lady Joan's guest. She is to be treated as such by every member of this household. If anyone finds that instruction difficult, they may explain the difficulty to me personally. Yes, Your Grace. The footman withdrew. Helena's first impulse was gratitude. Her second was resistance. I did not ask you to do that. No, I do not require patronage. His expression sharpened. Nor did I offer it. What would you call it? Courtesy enforced where courtesy has failed. Lady Joan wisely became interested in an orange blossom. Helena held Adrian's gaze. I do not want your servants kind to me because they fear you. Neither do I. Then why command them? Because rank should be useful for something besides opening doors. The answer was too direct to dismiss. Helena looked down at the songbook. A fraction of the torn counterfoil showed beyond the inner pocket, where she had not pushed it fully back after the nursery. Adrian noticed. His gaze rested on the old paper only briefly. What is that? Helena closed the cover. Something that belongs to a time I do not discuss with strangers. I see. He did not ask again. That restraint disturbed her almost as much as curiosity might have done. From beyond the conservatory glass came the crunch of wheels over gravel. Lady Joan turned. A carriage was drawing up before the main entrance. Dark green bodywork. Fenwick crest on the door. Helena stopped breathing for one terrible second. Adrian saw the color leave her face. Who is it? She did not need to look twice. Sir Osbert Fenwick. The carriage door opened. Her late husband's elder brother stepped down onto the Merewick drive. Sir Osbert Fenwick entered Merewick Park as though he had been invited. That, Helena thought, was always one of his talents. He knew how to make intrusion resemble entitlement. By dinner, he had explained his presence 3 different ways. Business had brought him into Sussex. A delayed journey had made Merewick convenient. Lady Joan's name had reminded him, quite naturally, that his poor sister-in-law was staying in the neighborhood. He never once said he had come because Helena was there. He did not need to. The dining room glowed with candlelight and polished silver. Theo remained upstairs under Dr. Cole's instructions, comfortable but sore, with his injured shoulder supported and no prospect of leaving his rooms that evening. Helena had considered pleading a headache. Then she had despised herself for considering it. So she sat 3 places from Sir Osbert and ate her soup while he discussed harvest yields with Adrian as if there had never been a dead brother between them. You have been very generous to Helena, Osbert said eventually to Lady Joan. The words were mild enough to pass as praise. Helena set down her spoon. Lady Joan did not smile. I have enjoyed her company, of course. She has always been very capable in a household under strain. Adrian looked up. Osbert continued as though he had not noticed. My brother depended upon her enormously during his final illness. Letters, accounts, charitable matters. She bore an extraordinary burden. Did she? Adrian asked. The question was quiet. Osbert gave him a grave expression. Too much, perhaps. There are burdens no woman ought to be expected to carry without guidance. Helena felt the old trap opening beneath the conversation. If she protested, she appeared defensive. If she remained silent, he supplied the meaning. She lifted her wineglass. Sir Osbert has always had a remarkable memory for responsibilities he did not wish to carry himself. Lady Joan's eyes sharpened with approval. Osbert smiled. My dear Helena, still determined to misunderstand concern. No, Helena said. I think I understand it very well. The silence that followed was brief but complete. Adrian did not rescue her from it. Helena was grateful for that. Instead, he asked Osbert, You spoke of charitable matters. Which ones? For the first time, Sir Osbert hesitated. Only an instant. My late brother served several local causes. That was not what you said. Adrian's tone remained courteous. You said Mrs. Fenwick carried accounts. Osbert leaned back slightly. I would hardly expect your Grace to have an interest in old parish unpleasantness. I find I become interested when a man introduces unpleasantness at my table and then declines to name it. Helena looked at Adrian. He did not look at her. His attention remained entirely on Osbert. That mattered. Osbert's smile thinned. There was a widow's relief fund attached to St. Aldwyn's. My brother was honorary treasurer. During his illness, certain discrepancies appeared. Nothing worthy of discussion over dinner. Then perhaps it should not have been introduced over dinner. Lady Joan lowered her gaze to conceal satisfaction. Osbert bowed his head. Quite right, Your Grace. The subject changed, but the warning had been delivered. Later, when the ladies had withdrawn, Helena escaped the drawing room before anyone could arrange a card table around her. She went to the library because it was the one room at Merewick where silence did not feel like exclusion. She had been there less than 5 minutes when Adrian entered. He closed the door only halfway behind him. A deliberate courtesy, Helena noticed. So, she said, you have questions. I have several. And yet you did not ask them at dinner. No. Why? Because Sir Osbert wanted me to. That answer surprised her. Adrian came no nearer than the opposite side of the table. I do not intend to let him choose the moment at which you explain yourself. Helena looked down at the blue songbook in her hands. You assume I intend to explain at all. I assume nothing. He paused. May I ask? She almost laughed at the precision of it. You may. What happened at St. Aldwyn's? Helena opened the songbook, not to sing. Her fingers found the small rear pocket and drew out the old counterfoil. The paper had yellowed at the edges. One side had been torn unevenly years before, but the written number remained clear. She placed it on the table between them, but kept 2 fingers resting on it. My husband was honorary treasurer of the St. Aldwyn's Widows' Relief Fund. It was a private charitable trust. Small pensions, winter coal, emergency payments. Adrian listened without interrupting. During his final illness, I copied correspondence for him. I prepared lists. I wrote figures where he dictated them. Sometimes Osbert brought papers for signature because my husband was too weak to attend meetings. Osbert was a trustee, a co-trustee, and money disappeared. Yes, the word came out flat. After my husband died, several payments could not be reconciled. Copies of accounts in my hand were found among the papers. People remembered that I had written for him. They remembered rather less carefully who told me what to write. Adrian's gaze dropped to the counterfoil. And this, counterfoil number 147. What does it prove? By itself? Very little. Helena appreciated the fact that he did not pretend otherwise. It records a legitimate payment made while my husband was still alive. Later, when questions were raised, I saw a copied account that seemed to place the same number elsewhere. Seemed. I never saw the original book again. Who controlled it? Osbert. The answer changed the room. Adrian did not seize upon it triumphantly. He only asked, Was there anyone else who might know how the numbers were entered? Helena hesitated. There was a parish clerk, Edwin Preece. He handled much of the routine recording. Where is he now? I do not know. When did you last see him? Shortly after the scandal began. Then he left St. Aldwyn's. I never learned where. Adrian studied the paper. Would you permit me to make inquiries? Helena's hand tightened over the counterfoil. Permit? Yes. You are a duke, so I have been repeatedly informed. Despite herself, the corner of her mouth moved. Adrian's expression softened. I can ask my steward to find Mr. Preece, quietly, but I will not do it without your consent. Helena looked at him for a long moment. There were many ways powerful men offered help. Most of them sounded like decisions already made. You may seek him, she said at last. You may seek the truth. You may not purchase me a cleaner reputation. I would not insult you by trying. People with money often call it kindness. Then you have my word that I will be precise in my insults. She laughed before she could stop herself. The sound disappeared quickly. Adrian's face changed with it, not triumph, something more vulnerable. Helena looked away. You make a great many rules for uncertainty, Your Grace. He was quiet. Then he said, After my wife died, I discovered uncertainty was the one thing rank could not command. Helena looked back at him. His voice had lost its dry edge. I could order physicians, tutors, servants. I could change Theo's rooms, his schedule, his horses, his lessons. I could make lists until the house ran like a regiment. And did it help? No. The honesty of it struck her harder than grief performed loudly would have done. Adrian placed one hand on the table between them, palm upward. He did not reach for her. He only left it there. Helena stared at it. Then, slowly, she placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers. They remained that way in silence. No gratitude, no promise, only two people acknowledging what neither could command. At last, Helena drew a breath. You may look for Edwin Preece. Adrian nodded. I will. Neither released the other's hand immediately. Outside the half-open library door, unseen by them both, Sir Osbert Fenwick paused in the corridor. Then he moved on without making a sound. By the following evening, Sir Osbert had become charming. Helena distrusted him most when he was charming. At the harvest supper, he spoke warmly of Sussex roads, praised Lady Joan's arrangements, admired Merewick's tenants, and managed to make 3 neighbouring families believe he had come only because country hospitality had detained him. Helena sat halfway down the long table and watched him perform respectability. Adrian sat at the head. Theo had been allowed downstairs for half an hour before dinner, wrapped carefully in a dark dressing gown, and settled near the drawing-room fire under Dr. Cole's instructions. His shoulder remained bound close to his body. He was sore, pale, and deeply offended by the prohibition against riding. That offense reassured Helena. Fear had not vanished, but ordinary childhood irritation had begun to return. You said I might walk to the window, Theo told his father. I said you might walk to the window if Dr. Cole agreed. Dr. Cole agrees with you too often, an excellent quality in a physician. Theo looked toward Helena for support. She shook her head solemnly. I cannot interfere in so grave a dispute. His mouth twitched. It was the only time that evening she allowed herself to forget Sir Osbert was watching. Dinner began quietly enough. Then, after the second course had been removed, Lady Ashcombe mentioned a charitable subscription being organized for widows in a neighbouring parish. Osbert laid down his fork. A worthy cause. Helena felt the trap before he opened it. He looked toward her with a benevolent sadness that made her skin go cold. Though charitable funds require unusually careful stewardship, Lady Joan's hand stilled beside her glass. Adrian's gaze lifted. Helena said nothing. Osbert continued, One learns caution through experience. A gentleman across the table glanced between them. You have had some unfortunate experience, Fenwick. Osbert gave the small sigh of a man reluctant to injure anyone. I had hoped not to speak of family matters. Helena looked directly at him. Then do not. The room became quieter. Osbert's eyes met hers. My dear Helena, I am thinking of your position. No, she said. You are thinking of the use you can make of it. Lady Ashcombe looked down sharply. Adrian did not interrupt. Osbert smiled faintly. You see how difficult this remains. There it was. Not accusation yet. Preparation. Helena felt the old pressure to become silent for everyone else's comfort. She refused it. If you intend to say something, Sir Osbert, say it plainly. His expression altered, only slightly, but the charm disappeared. Very well. From inside his coat, he removed a folded paper. Adrian's voice cut across the table. What is that? A record from St. Aldwyn's Widows' Relief Fund. Helena's pulse struck once, hard. Osbert unfolded it. Voucher number 147. Lady Joan turned toward Helena. Helena did not look away from the paper. Osbert continued, his tone sorrowful. It bears Mrs. Fenwick's hand. It records a payment made after my brother had become too ill to conduct business, a payment that was never properly accounted for. One of the neighboring ladies inhaled. No one else spoke. Helena held out her hand. May I see it? Osbert hesitated. Then he passed it down. The paper reached her. The number was clear. Her own name appeared beneath the entry. The handwriting resembled hers. Resembled. Helena read the date, then read it again. A strange steadiness came over her. This cannot be right. Osbert gave a tired smile. You have said that before. Helena lifted her eyes. I possess counterfoil 147. The table changed. Adrian's attention sharpened. Osbert did not move. Helena continued. And mine records a different payment, made months before the date on this voucher. A murmur began. Adrian raised one hand. Silence returned. Osbert leaned back. Then perhaps the counterfoil you possess is the false document. Helena felt the blow. Not because she had not expected it, because she had no answer yet. She knew what she had kept. She knew what she remembered. But proof was not memory. Across the room, beyond the half-open drawing-room door, something struck the floor. Helena turned. Theo stood in the doorway. He must have slipped from Lady Joan's maid while the servants were occupied. His face had gone white. Papa! Adrian rose instantly. Theo, the boy's gaze moved from Helena to Osbert to the paper in her hand. Did she steal something? Helena's throat tightened. Adrian crossed the room. No, Osbert began. Your Grace, the child ought to understand. No. The word stopped him. Adrian crouched carefully before Theo. This is an adult matter. Mrs. Fenwick has been accused of something, and the accusation has not been proved. Theo looked at Helena. Are you leaving? The question struck harder than Osbert's paper. Helena stood. Not tonight. Adrian's eyes met hers. Then he called quietly for Theo's valet. No scene was made of the child's removal. No one scolded him for listening. Adrian waited until Theo was safely upstairs before he returned to the table. He did not sit. Sir Osbert, he said, you will leave that voucher with my steward for comparison. Osbert's brows rose. Surely your Grace does not suggest. I suggest nothing. I intend to determine whether two documents bearing the same number can both be genuine. Osbert looked at Helena. For the first time that evening, there was no charm in his face. Then he smiled again. Of course. The supper ended early. An hour later, Helena stood in the small morning room adjoining Lady Joan's apartments. Fastening the clasp of her songbook, Adrian entered after sending word through Lady Joan that he wished to speak with her. He remained near the door. I have a solution? Helena looked up. The certainty in his voice frightened her more than anger would have. To what? To this. He stepped closer. Your position here, the gossip, Osbert's ability to imply that you have no legitimate reason to remain at Merewick. Helena's fingers stilled. Adrian continued. I can appoint you formally as Theo's companion. For a moment she thought she had misunderstood. A companion, with a salary, private rooms, household standing. No one could question why you remain near him. You would have independence rather than obligation to my aunt. Helena stared at him. He believed this was kindness. That made it worse. You wish to employ me. I wish to make your place here secure. My place. Yes. She closed the songbook carefully. Because I calmed your son. Because Theo trusts you. And because society requires an explanation for why I am in your house. His jaw tightened. I will not have you exposed to insult when I can prevent it. By giving me a position, a respectable one. The word landed between them. Helena went very still. Adrian saw it. Too late. Helena. No, it was the first time she had used no title with him. He stopped. She lifted her chin. You have taken the one thing that felt freely given in this house and turned it into employment. That was not my intention. No, your intention was to protect me. Yes, and to make my presence understandable. His silence answered. Helena swallowed. All my married life, people praised me for being useful. Useful when my husband was ill. Useful when he could no longer write. Useful when accounts needed copying. Useful when there were explanations to make and burdens to carry. Adrian's face changed. She continued, before courage failed. I will not turn affection into wages because society finds affection inconvenient. I did not mean to suggest that what you are to Theo can be bought, but you tried to give it a salary. He took one step toward her. His hand lifted. Helena saw the movement, so did he. He stopped before touching her. The space between them remained intact. I was trying to give you security. I know. That was the tragedy of it. Helena picked up the songbook, and I am telling you I would rather have uncertainty than a place I must earn by being needed. Adrian looked as though she had struck him. She did not soften the truth. Once Theo is securely recovering, I will leave Merewick. He opened his mouth. No command came, no argument. Helena walked past him. At the doorway she paused. Behind her, Adrian remained exactly where she had left him. For once, the Duke of Merewick had no system for what frightened him. Theo was sitting upright when Helena entered the nursery the next morning. That alone marked a victory. His right shoulder remained secured close to his body, and the bruising along his ribs still made every careless movement costly. But color had returned to his face. A tray with bread, weak tea, and untouched preserves stood beside the bed. He regarded Helena with the solemn suspicion of a boy who had been informed that adults were making decisions around him. Papa says I may walk to the window after luncheon. Then I advise you to survive breakfast first. Theo looked at the tray. I have. You have rearranged it. That counts. It does not. A reluctant smile appeared. Helena took the chair beside the bed, but she did not open the blue songbook. Theo noticed. Aren't you going to sing? No. His brows drew together. Why? Because you are not frightened. He considered that. I was frightened last night. I know. Because of what Sir Osbert said? Yes. Was he telling the truth? Helena did not answer quickly. The child deserved honesty, but not the burden of adult evidence. He told part of a story as though it were the whole of one. Theo frowned. That sounds like lying. It can be. Did you steal money? No. His expression cleared with the terrible simplicity of childhood trust. Then I believe you. Something inside Helena tightened. Not relief, almost grief. Adults had demanded papers, explanations, witnesses, histories. A 9-year-old had asked one question. She looked away toward the window. Theo followed her gaze. You are leaving. Not a question this time. Helena folded her hands. I may. When? Not until you are much stronger. I am already much stronger. You have jam on your cuff. That proves nothing. Despite herself, she smiled. Theo did not. Is Papa making you go? No. That answer mattered enough that she spoke it firmly. He is not making me do anything. Then stay. Helena looked back at him. There it was, the request she had feared. Not because it was manipulative, because it was innocent. Theo, she said gently. Sometimes people must be allowed to leave a place in order to know whether they truly wish to return. He studied her with an intensity inherited from his father. That doesn't make sense. Most important things do not at 9. I shall ask Papa. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. Theo blinked. Helena softened her voice. Please do not ask him to persuade me. Why? Because I want whatever I decide to be mine. He was silent. Then he nodded with visible reluctance. Very well. A knock sounded at the half-open door. Adrian stood there. Helena did not know how much he had heard. Enough, perhaps. He did not enter immediately. Theo, Dr. Cole will see you before noon, Theo groaned. He always finds another place that hurts. That is because you conceal them. It is strategy. It is foolishness wearing a better coat. Theo rolled his eyes. Adrian looked at Helena. Mrs. Fenwick, may I speak with you when you have finished here? You may. He inclined his head and withdrew. No command, no assumption that she would follow immediately. Helena noticed that too. Later, she found him in the library. The door remained open. Her counterfoil still rested inside the rear pocket of the blue songbook tucked beneath her arm. Adrian stood at the long table with a letter in his hand. We have found Preece. Helena stopped. Where? Surrey, near Guildford. A small, strange shock went through her. For years Edwin Preece had existed in memory only. Narrow shoulders, ink-stained fingers, a habit of tapping his pen twice before entering a figure. Alive, reachable, real. He remembers St. Aldwyn's. My steward's man spoke only enough to confirm his identity. Preece says he remembers the relief fund and will come to Merewick. When? Tomorrow, if the roads hold. Helena let out a breath. Adrian placed the letter down. There is more, of course there was. Osbert knows we have been asking after him. How? I do not yet know. But by breakfast, 2 neighboring houses had received a version of events in which you cultivated Theo's dependence in order to secure my patronage. Helena went still. For a moment she saw the entire mechanism with terrible clarity. First she had been the widow who stole. Now she was the widow who schemed. If one story failed, Osbert simply replaced it with another. Adrian's jaw tightened. I can stop some of it. No, he looked at her. Do not buy silence. Do not threaten invitations. Do not make this disappear privately. I was going to say I can stop it from entering Theo's rooms. Helena paused. That you may do. A faint, humorless smile touched his mouth. I am learning. So am I. The silence between them was not comfortable, but neither was it hostile. Adrian looked toward the songbook. Will you still leave? Yes. His expression tightened. Even if Preece clears your name? Yes. Why? Helena had thought about the answer all night. Because she was angry. Because his offer had wounded her. Because remaining would be easier. None of those was sufficient. She set the blue songbook on the table and opened it. The counterfoil waited where it always had. She removed it carefully, because innocence is not the same as freedom. Adrian said nothing. Helena held out the paper. This is counterfoil 147. I am giving it to you for comparison with whatever Preece remembers and whatever record remains. He looked at the paper, then at her. You are certain? Yes, he accepted it, with both care and gravity. For the first time in years, the counterfoil was no longer in Helena's possession. The absence felt almost physical. Adrian placed it immediately inside a clean portfolio on the table. No pocket, no casual custody. She was grateful for that precision. I owe you an apology, he said. You gave me one last night. I gave you an explanation. Helena waited. He looked directly at her. I offered you the position because I was afraid. She did not rescue him from the admission. Afraid of what? That Theo would lose someone he trusts. A pause. And that I would lose someone I had no respectable name for wanting to remain. Helena's breath caught. He continued before she could speak. So I invented a respectable name, companion, salary, rooms, a place made defensible. Helena lowered her gaze. That was the part that hurt. I know that now. No, I do not think you did. His face tightened. She forced herself onward. My husband needed me. His household needed me. His correspondence needed me. His accounts needed me. After he died, everyone remembered what I had done, and no one remembered that I had been a person while doing it. Adrian's eyes did not leave her. I cannot live that way again. You will not. That is not yours to promise. He absorbed the rebuke, then nodded. No, it is not. Helena looked at him. That answer reached somewhere his earlier certainty could not. She stepped closer, not enough to erase the distance, enough to acknowledge it. Her fingers touched the sleeve of his coat just above the wrist, briefly, deliberately. Adrian did not move. Helena withdrew her hand. I am still leaving. I know. And I have not forgiven everything. I know that too. His restraint made her chest ache. Outside the library, carriage wheels sounded over the drive. Adrian glanced toward the window. Helena did not. For one instant, she feared Priest had arrived early. Instead, a footman appeared at the door, carrying a note. For His Grace. Adrian broke the seal. His expression hardened as he read. Helena knew before he spoke. Another household? Yes. What does it say this time? He folded the note once. That Mrs. Fenwick has made herself indispensable to a wounded child because she could not make herself respectable by any other means. Helena closed her eyes, only for a second. Then she opened them. Good. Adrian stared at her. Good? Yes. Her voice steadied. If Osbert has begun changing the accusation, it means he is afraid the first one will fail. For the first time that morning, Adrian smiled, not because anything was amusing, because she had just turned pressure into evidence of weakness. Then tomorrow, he said, we ask Mr. Priest what Sir Osbert is afraid of. Edwin Priest arrived shortly before noon, with rain darkening the shoulders of his coat, and an expression that suggested he had spent the entire journey regretting his agreement to come. Helena recognized him at once. Age had narrowed his face and silvered the hair at his temples, but he still carried himself with the same slightly folded posture she remembered from St. Aldwyn's vestry office. He still tapped 2 fingers against his hat before speaking. Mrs. Fenwick. For a moment she could not answer. Mr. Priest. Adrian stood beside the long library table. His steward had already placed 3 items there. Helena's counterfoil, number 147, Osbert's alleged voucher, and the letter confirming Priest's identity. Nothing else. No crowd. No witnesses summoned merely for drama. Adrian gestured toward a chair. Mr. Priest, you understand why you were asked here? I believe so, Your Grace. His gaze found Helena again. I should have written years ago. The apology startled her. She shook her head. First, tell us what you remember. Priest sat. Adrian remained standing at the end of the table, far enough away that the papers did not appear to belong to him merely because the room did. Priest put on his spectacles. He examined Helena's counterfoil first. His finger stopped beneath the number. 147. You recognize it? Adrian asked. I recognize the sequence. Priest looked at Helena. This one was issued for Mrs. Gibbons's winter relief. Coal allowance and 6 weeks supplement after her husband died. Helena remembered the name. A thin woman with 3 children and a red wool shawl. What date? She asked. Priest read the notation. January. Adrian slid Osbert's paper across the table. And this, Priest frowned before he had finished reading. That cannot be right. Helena's pulse quickened. Why? This claims to be voucher 147, issued in April. He looked between them. The same numbered voucher would not have been issued twice. Adrian did not move. Could the January counterfoil have been fabricated later? Priest looked offended on behalf of his old records. Not easily, Your Grace, and not if the quarterly abstract survives. Helena turned. The abstract? Priest nodded. The trustees received summaries every quarter, total payments, voucher, ranges, recipient names in larger grants. Adrian's gaze sharpened. Does one survive? Priest reached into the worn leather case at his feet. I brought the March quarter copy from my own papers. Helena stared. You had it. I kept several working abstracts when I left St. Aldwyn's. Habit more than foresight. He unfolded a document carefully. Adrian did not touch it. Priest laid it beside Helena's counterfoil and traced a line with one finger. Here, numbers 138 through 152, 147. Widow Gibbons. Silence settled over the library, not theatrical silence, the quieter kind that comes when uncertainty begins losing ground. Helena looked at Osbert's voucher. The number that had haunted her now seemed less like a verdict and more like a mistake someone had believed would never be examined. Adrian asked, "Who controlled the unused vouchers after Mr. Fenwick became too ill to attend?" Priest's mouth tightened. Sir Osbert. Helena closed her eyes briefly. Adrian continued, "Did Mrs. Fenwick?" "No." "Did she ever have custody of the blank books?" "No, Your Grace." Priest adjusted his spectacles. "She copied figures, letters, recipient lists when her husband dictated them, but the blank vouchers remained with the trustees." "With Sir Osbert? After Mr. Fenwick took to his bed?" "Yes." Helena opened her eyes. Priest looked at her. "I knew people were speaking against you. I did not know what paper they were using. Why did you leave? My wife's sister fell ill in Surrey. Then I obtained another position." His shame was quiet. "I told myself the trustees would settle the accounts without me. They had, just not truthfully." Adrian glanced toward Helena. "Does this prove Sir Osbert wrote the false voucher?" Priest shook his head. "No." Helen appreciated the answer. Adrian did too. "But it proves," he asked, "that the April paper cannot truthfully be the original voucher 147. That number was already issued in January, and Sir Osbert had custody of the unused voucher books afterward. Opportunity, contradiction, not magic. Enough to break the certainty Osbert had relied upon. A knock sounded. Adrian's steward entered, carrying a second folded sheet. "Your Grace," from Mr. Wainwright, one of the surviving trustees at St. Aldwyn's. Adrian read it and passed it to Helena. Mr. Wainwright confirmed the March abstract matched the surviving trust summary still held among parish charitable papers. Independent confirmation. Helena sat back. For years she had carried the counterfoil because it told her memory was not madness. Now, finally, it belonged to something larger than memory. Adrian dismissed everyone but Helena. Priest withdrew with Lady Joan's thanks and the steward's promise of refreshment before his return journey. When the door closed, Adrian looked at Helena. "What do you want done? Not what should be done. Not what he had arranged. What do you want?" Helena stood very still. "Osbert made the accusation before people who believed him." "Yes, I want it answered before those same people." Adrian nodded once. "No larger audience. No gossip sheet. No solicitor's spectacle." A faint shadow of amusement touched her face. "Especially not that." "Then a small gathering tomorrow evening. Only those already involved." Helena's composure faltered. Tomorrow, the truth becoming public frightened her more than the private evidence had. Adrian noticed. "You need not do this yourself." "Yes, I do. I know." He came closer, but stopped with space still between them. Helena looked down at her hands. "I thought I would feel triumphant, and instead, terrified." She forced a breath. "I know what happens when a room decides what sort of woman you are before you speak." Adrian's expression changed. He did not offer strategy. He did not offer rank. He asked softly, "May I hold you?" Helena looked at him. The question itself undid something in her. "Yes." She stepped forward. His arms came around her carefully, and Helena let herself rest against him. Not as a patient, not as a dependent, not as someone being rescued. She lifted her arms and held him in return. For several quiet seconds, neither spoke. Then Adrian said near her hair, "What I feel for you began before I knew whether you would remain useful to anyone in this house." Helena closed her eyes. That was not yet everything. But it was enough to let her believe he was learning the difference. When they parted, Adrian did not keep hold of her. Helena looked toward the papers on the table. "Tomorrow, I speak first. You will. And if Osbert appeals to your authority, I shall disappoint him." She almost smiled. Then she faced the counterfoil, the false voucher, and the abstract. For the first time in years, Helena did not feel she was waiting for someone powerful to tell the truth on her behalf. She was preparing to tell it herself. The long drawing room at Merewick held fewer people than a ballroom, and more judgment than Helena would have preferred. Lady Joan had insisted on that arrangement. Only those who had heard Sir Osbert's accusation were present, together with 2 surviving trustees connected to St. Aldwyn's Widows' Relief Fund, Edwin Preece, Adrian, and the steward who had held the disputed voucher since the harvest supper. No musicians, no curious servants lingering at the doors, no strangers invited for spectacle. Helena stood near the center table with her hands empty. She had deliberately left the blue songbook upstairs. Tonight, she did not need something to hide behind. Sir Osbert stood opposite her. He looked composed. That frightened her less than it once would have. Adrian had offered to begin. Helena had refused. So when the room settled, it was Helena who spoke first. Several nights ago, Sir Osbert told those present that I had been responsible for missing money from the St. Aldwyn's Widows' Relief Fund. Osbert inclined his head. I produced a record. You produced a paper. His expression tightened. Helena continued. My late husband was honorary treasurer of the fund. During his final illness, I copied letters, lists, and figures at his direction. Sir Osbert was co-trustee and took custody of the unused voucher books when my husband became too ill to conduct business. One of the trustees, Mr. Wainwright, nodded. That arrangement is consistent with what remains in our correspondence. Osbert glanced toward him. Helena did not. For years, I had only one reason to doubt the story told about me. Adrian's steward opened the portfolio. He placed the counterfoil on the table. Helena looked at it. It seemed smaller than it had inside her songbook. Counterfoil number 147. Preece stepped forward. I entered the original issue. Osbert gave a faint laugh. After all these years, Preece looked at him. I remember the numbering because I kept the quarterly abstract, sir. He placed the abstract beside the counterfoil. The entry records relief issued in January to Mrs. Gibbons, voucher 147. Mr. Wainwright added, the surviving trust summary confirms the same sequence. Helena turned to Osbert. Your paper also claims to be voucher 147. The steward now produced the document Osbert had left for comparison. Its copied signature still looked like hers. Its date was April. Helena had spent years believing resemblance could condemn her. Tonight it looked only like ink. She met Osbert's eyes. One number cannot truthfully represent 2 separate original payments issued months apart. Osbert's expression remained controlled. A clerical error. Preece shook his head. No, sir, you have not worked at St. Aldwyn's in years. I worked there when the vouchers were issued. A numbering error remains possible, Helena said. Then explain why the January counterfoil appears in the March quarter abstract and the surviving trustee summary. Osbert looked toward Adrian. Your Grace, surely you can see what this has become. Adrian's voice was calm. I can. Osbert seemed relieved too early. A disgruntled clerk, old papers, a widow desperate to restore herself, and a household eager to believe her. Adrian did not move. You addressed Mrs. Fenwick. Osbert blinked. Adrian added, answer her. Helena felt something shift in the room, not because a duke had defended her, because he had refused to replace her. Osbert looked back at Helena. The accounts were confused during my brother's illness. Who held the unused vouchers? I have already heard Preece's claim. I asked you. A pause. I did, and after my husband became too ill to leave his room, I managed certain administrative matters. Did I ever have custody of the blank voucher book? No. The word came reluctantly. Helena continued. Did I authorize you to use my handwriting or copy my name onto later records? His jaw tightened. Do not make this ridiculous. That is not an answer. Lady Joan sat perfectly still. No one rescued Osbert from the question. He looked around the room as if expecting rank, sex, or habit to restore the old order. Nothing did. Helena asked again. Did I authorize you? No. Priest drew a slow breath. Osbert's restraint cracked. My brother was dying. The fund was disorganized. There were obligations everywhere. Someone had to correct the records. Helena went cold. Correct them? His eyes flashed. You know nothing of what it required to keep that parish from scandal. I know what it required of me. Osbert stopped. Too late. The room had heard him, Mr. Wainwright stepped toward the documents. Sir Osbert, are you saying you altered the records? I am saying adjustments were made. Using Mrs. Fenwick's name, Osbert's silence answered more clearly than speech. Helena looked at him for one final moment. You allowed people to believe I had stolen from widows. His face hardened. You chose silence. Yes, her voice did not tremble. I did. I believed silence would protect my dead husband from disgrace. She looked around the room. That was my mistake. I will not make it again. No one applauded. Helena was grateful. Mr. Wainwright gathered the papers. Sir Osbert, you will no longer act in any capacity connected with the fund. The remaining trustees will examine the accounts and pursue restitution where necessary. Osbert turned toward Adrian. Your Grace, you cannot mean to permit. You were asked to leave this matter in truth, Adrian said. You chose otherwise. His voice became colder. You will leave Merewick tonight. Osbert stared at Helena. Whatever he intended to say died there. He bowed stiffly and walked out. The door closed behind him. For several seconds no one moved. Then Lady Ashcombe rose from her chair. Helena braced herself. The woman approached slowly. Her face held none of the easy certainty it had worn when Helena first arrived at Merewick. Mrs. Fenwick. Helena waited. Lady Ashcombe swallowed. I was wrong. That was all. No performance. No request to be forgiven. Helena inclined her head. Thank you. The gathering dissolved quietly after that. Priest departed with the trustees. The steward took Osbert's voucher and the quarterly abstract. Adrian lifted the old counterfoil from the table. He held it out to Helena. She looked at it. For years it had lived inside the blue songbook. A private argument against madness. A burden she could never throw away because it was the only thing that remembered with her. Now she did not take it. Send it where it belongs. Adrian's hand remained still. Helena added, I have carried it long enough. He nodded. The counterfoil went with the trustees. Later, Helena stood on the terrace outside the drawing room. Light from the tall windows stretched across the stone behind her. Voices remained audible inside, near enough to preserve propriety and far enough to allow honesty. Adrian joined her. He did not speak immediately. Helena looked out into the darkness. You were right, he said at last. She glanced at him. About which thing? I should like to record the occasion. A surprised laugh escaped him. Then his expression sobered. About the position I offered. Helena said nothing. I thought if I gave you a recognized place, no one could question why you belonged at Merewick. You thought correctly. That does not make it right. She turned toward him fully. Adrian's voice lowered. I made your presence defensible to everyone except you. Something in her chest tightened. I took the thing I admired most, your care for Theo, and made it into a duty. Because duty is a language I know how to control. Helena held his gaze. And because I was afraid that if I did not give you a role, I would have to admit I wanted you to stay for reasons that had nothing to do with usefulness. There it was. Not an excuse. The truth. I am sorry, he said. Not that my solution failed. That I offered it at all without first asking what you wanted. Helena felt the old instinct to forgive quickly, to ease discomfort, to make herself useful even in apology. She resisted it. Thank you. Adrian accepted that as all she was ready to give. Then he said, there is something else I must ask. Her heartbeat changed. What? May I kiss you? The world became very quiet. Helena looked at him. He did not move closer. He waited. So she made the choice unmistakable. Helena stepped forward and lifted both hands to his face. His breath caught beneath her palms. Yes, Adrian bent toward her slowly. The kiss was restrained, warm and brief enough that nothing about it could be mistaken for possession. When they parted, Helena did not lower her hands immediately. Adrian's eyes remained on hers. "I love you, Helena." Her breath stopped. "Not what you can do for Theo. Not what you restored to this house." His voice roughened. "You." Helena had imagined hearing such words before. She had never imagined answering them without fear of what they would cost. "I love you too." His eyes closed for 1 second. She touched his cheek with her thumb. Then she let her hands fall. "But I am still leaving tomorrow." Pain crossed his face. He did not argue. Helena continued gently. "Love matters too much for me to stay before I know staying is a choice." Adrian nodded. "I understand." And this time, she believed he did. Helena left Merewick the following morning. No one tried to stop her. That mattered more than she expected. Lady Joan accompanied her to the front steps and kissed her cheek. Theo had been permitted to come downstairs, though Dr. Cole had forbidden anything more ambitious than a slow walk from the morning room. He stood beside his father with his injured shoulder still supported beneath his coat. "You are really going," he said. "For a little while," Theo frowned. "That is what adults say when they do not know how long something will be," Helena smiled. "Then I shall be more precise. I am going to Lady Joan's dower house, which is less than half an hour away, and I am not disappearing into Scotland." "I was not worried about Scotland." "You looked worried about something." Theo glanced at Adrian. His father said nothing, no signal, no request, no carefully arranged plea delivered through a child. Theo looked back at Helena. "I wanted to ask you to stay. I know, but Papa said I must not ask you to decide for my sake." Helena's eyes lifted to Adrian. He did not claim credit for the restraint. Theo continued, "I think that is very inconvenient. It often is. Will you come back?" Helena looked at him carefully. "I hope so." Theo considered this. Then, with the dignity of a young marquess enduring intolerable uncertainty, he nodded. "Very well." Helena bent and kissed his hair. "Continue frightening Dr. Cole by recovering sensibly. That sounds impossible." "It is difficult, but I have faith in you." She straightened. Adrian stood only a few feet away. The memory of the terrace remained between them. His apology, his question, her hands against his face, the warmth of the kiss. "I love you." She felt no desire to take the words back. That was precisely why she had to leave. Adrian stepped forward. "Your carriage is ready. Thank you." Nothing more. No promise extracted at the threshold. No demand for an answer before she had one. Helena entered the carriage with the faded blue songbook resting beside her. When the wheels began to move, she looked back once. Adrian had one hand on Theo's uninjured shoulder. He did not raise the other. He simply let her go. 4 days later, a calling card arrived at Lady Joan's dower house. Not a letter marked urgent, not an order carried under ducal seal. A calling card. His Grace, the Duke of Merewick. Helena turned it over in her fingers and laughed softly. Lady Joan, seated opposite with her embroidery, did not look up. "I told him not to be theatrical." "You told him?" "I told him if he arrived unannounced, I would keep him waiting in the hall." "You would not." Lady Joan finally glanced up. "I absolutely would." Adrian came at 3 in the afternoon. He entered the drawing room in daylight, where doors stood open and 2 footmen remained within easy call. Proper, ordinary. Helena had never understood how romantic ordinary courtesy could feel until a powerful man chose it deliberately. Lady Joan stayed long enough to establish propriety, then withdrew to the adjoining room with the door open. Adrian looked at Helena. "You seem well. I have discovered that 4 days without scandal are restorative. I should have prescribed them earlier. You are not a physician. I have recently learned the dangers of pretending to know professions I do not." She smiled. He did too. Then the humor left his face. "I have news." "About Osbert?" "Yes." Helena's hands stilled in her lap. The trustees have removed him from every function connected with St. Aldwyn's Widows' Relief Fund. Mr. Wainwright has written to those households who received the false account. The surviving records are being corrected. And the missing money, they have begun the process of determining what can be recovered from him. Helena nodded slowly. No instant ruin, no dramatic imprisonment. Only consequence, and my name corrected in the fund records. Her throat tightened. For years she had imagined vindication as something loud. It arrived as one careful sentence, corrected in the records. Adrian continued. Lady Ashcombe has also written to my aunt asking whether an apology to you would be welcome. Helena considered. Not yet. I told Lady Joan the decision must be yours. Good. The word came with warmth this time. Adrian sat opposite her. I have no position to offer you. Helena's brows rose. No salary rooms? No household authority? None. This is becoming a very poor negotiation. His eyes softened. I am not negotiating. Silence settled. Then he said, I know what I want. Helena waited. I do not want a companion for Theo. Her heartbeat changed. I do not want a woman grateful because my name protects hers. I do not want a hostess, a nurse, or someone who believes she must be useful every hour she remains under my roof. His voice lowered. I want a wife who may disagree with me, leave a room angry, refuse me, correct me, go away for 4 days because she needs to know she can. Helena's eyes burned. Adrian did not move closer, and still know that when she returns, she belongs because she is loved. For several seconds, Helena could not speak. Then she rose. Adrian rose too. She crossed the space between them. He waited. Helena took his hand first. I thought I had to leave Merewick because staying would prove I was needed. His fingers closed gently around hers. And now I know leaving did not make you love me less. No. And you did not send Theo to persuade me. No. You did not send jewels. I considered flowers. That would have been tolerable. A quiet laugh escaped him. Helena stepped closer. I love you, Adrian. His expression changed. She tightened her hand around his. And I am coming back because I choose you. He drew a breath. Helena. She rose slightly on her toes and kissed him. This time she began it. Adrian's free hand came to her waist only after she leaned into him. The kiss remained gentle, but nothing about it was uncertain. When they parted, he rested his forehead lightly against hers. I love you, she smiled. I know. Weeks later, the blue songbook lay open on the pianoforte in Merewick's music room. Its rear pocket was empty. Counterfoil 147 now rested where it belonged, among the corrected records of St. Aldwyn's trustees. Theo stood beside the instrument, his shoulder almost mended, but still forbidden from riding. He tapped the page impatiently. You promised the song. Helena looked at Adrian. I believe it is your turn. Adrian stared at her. I cannot sing. That has never prevented half the gentlemen in England. Theo laughed. Adrian gave them both a look of betrayed dignity. Then, badly and without the slightest musical instinct, the Duke of Merewick began. Theo laughed harder. Helena joined only on the final line. Her hand rested on the edge of the pianoforte. Adrian placed his beside it. She turned her palm upward. His fingers threaded through hers. The songbook remained open before them. Nothing hidden inside. Nothing left for Helena to prove before she was allowed to belong. Thank you for listening to the story all the way to the end. Please tell us which city you're watching from and what the story made you feel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss new stories.